Why am I staring at the ground right now? Why am I staring at the ground right now? Because, of course, it's time to dive deep with the Dreadmaw, and it is currently buried under the ground here. Not just one Dreadmaw, but two Dreadmaws here in this Warriors of Chaos army. We're up against Giama's High Elves, so let's take a look here. Yeah, I've got Marauder, Bearman. I know I said I wouldn't use them on Warriors of Chaos. I still think they belong only on Norska. To be honest, it seems like a lot of you agree based on the comments of my other video. But I decided, you know what, let's just take them here, just to see what they can do. Backed up by two Chosen of Slaanesh with Hell Scourges, plus the Mirror Guard. We've got some Marauder Horsemen up front, and Azazel up in the sky, just to keep things on theme. And then, yeah, a single unit of Hell Striders as well, to help protect those Marauder Horsemen. And then the double Dreadmaw we'll talk more about in just a minute, but first, for Giama, he's got 5 Spearmen up front, some Illyrian Reavers and Silver Helms, with some mass in the back line. A Merwyrm. So this is another new unit here we haven't looked at yet, so let's cover in detail. Yeah, he's basically comparable to something like a Dread Saurian in cost. I think actually a little bit less cost than a Dread Saurian, but sort of on that tier, like super tier of monsters, right? 700 weapon strength with a bonus versus large of plus 30. He's got 59 melee attack, only 38 melee defense, but does have regeneration. And this Abyssal Cloak, which gives himself 20 missile block chance in a 360, 20% missile block chance in a 360, so that's nice. Not too much, but it is some missile block chance, which for a big monster like this is always great. Only active if the leadership is higher than broken, so once this thing breaks, then it no longer has this, but also gives enemies very close. You can see that tiny little 15-meter effect range, a -4 leadership, so essentially like whatever it's in melee with, though it does have the passive regeneration trait, which gives it weakness to fire damage. Very important to note. He's also got a couple of Lothern Sky Cutters. They're, 80 armor, chariots, a lot of ammunition. Can do quite a bit of skirmishing from the sky. This is the bow variant, not the bolt thrower variant, but they are looking quite cool. Pulled by the Hawks, and let's see how they can do here in this matchup. I'm gonna just set Azazel immediately upon them and see what he can do to bring them down. And otherwise, we're just getting the engagements going all across the board. My idea here is if he had archers, I was going to burrow into the back line and use the Dreadmaw to disrupt and destroy the archers as it unburrows. The main kind of damage-dealing component of it is that it will do good kind of explosion, anti-infantry damage as it surfaces. So we're going to see that play out in just a minute here. But a little pavane on those Swordmasters. As, yeah, both the Dreadmaws trying to move in. That one accidentally surfaced out there in no man's land, so he's going to get back down. But the Merwyrm kind of just working through infantry. Not the best against infantry, but definitely will do some damage over time. And Azazel fighting the Sky Cutters as the Chaos Warriors and Chosen below engage. Where is he? Somewhere in here. Yeah, he's actually doing some damage to them, but of course Azazel having very low armor also makes him quite vulnerable to getting damaged by them at range. So I'm going to surface the Dreadmaw, does a little explosion, and then kind of does some interesting splash attacks. Of course, it can't move while it's surfaced, so it is something where it's going to require a fair amount of active micro. Oh, there we go. It has that little teleport ability, basically, where it can quickly resurface to another area, do some nice AoE damage. And it does cause terror for only 1,000 points, making it a very cheap option. I think second only to the Manticore for Warriors of Chaos, and for Norska, terror-causing option. But these Chosen here get sandwiched on a hammer and anvil. But of course, they are Chosen of Slaanesh with 120 armor and 5 physical resistance. So they're going to be quite resilient against just the regular old Silver Helms. Swordmasters of Hoeth will be a little bit more dangerous, but we're going to see what we can do to deal with them. Merwyrm also, with its relatively low attack, especially as it's starting to get tired, it is going to struggle also to get consistent hits against the Chosen of Slaanesh. But Zazel does manage to break and chase one Lothern Skycutter. He is taking a lot of skirmish damage in the meantime, though. But let's continue to watch here as I kind of run these Dreadmaws around try and surface them in different areas. This one going for an attack run on the Swordmasters as they receive a little Earthblood here. And I love the death roll animation from the Merwyrm. Definitely a fun one for sure. It does seem like it maybe was at one point branched off from something like the Dread Saurian. But yeah, definitely having a grand old time. Wow, quite the nimble beast for such size. And there we see the Dreadmaw finally surfacing, doing some damage. Yeah, he's going to do some decent AoE damage. Actually helps to terror out the Swordmasters as they were fighting other things. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's tracking the explosion damage correctly, like when they resurface and deal damage. Because it seems like these guys probably should have had more by now. But either way, both Dreadmaws still quite healthy. Yeah, just because they're underground so much of the time, they're really not being threatened by anything here. Like, I can really avoid fighting the Merwyrm for as long as I need to. I do think maybe the resurface and burrow needs a little bit of more of a cooldown than what it currently has. We'll see. We'll see if these things end up getting abused very heavily, but I mean, their stats are pretty decent overall. They do have quite a bit of HP, which for a monster of this cost just in and of itself is really strong, and then combined with the fact of burrowing, and it can definitely avoid taking damage quite a bit. Of course, Vanguard deployment, as you saw there at the start, they are immune to flanking as well. We've got a little bit of passive damage reflection, not a ton. But one thing to note with that large HP pool is as soon as they rout, they are gone. It will instantly shatter the first time it routs. So do keep that in mind as you're fighting against Dreadmaws. If you can break their leadership, it will be very, very easy to get rid of them. But maybe not so easy to break their leadership. They've got a pretty good base value. Although Lord recently died. Yep, that's right. Zazel was chasing the Lothern Skycutters out there in the distance and just got shot to death. So they probably got some really good value doing that. But also in the infantry grind, my superior infantry were able to clean up pretty efficiently. Mirrorguard, a Chosen of Slaanesh, punching through, and now we've got our Marauder Horsemen javelins throwing at the Merwyrm, trying to deal enough damage to try and take it down. Of course, the Merwyrm will be regenerating this whole time, but Marauder Horsemen, pretty good amount of damage on their javelins, even with just a couple of units still operational. The rest, Jama here healing his cavalry, trying to get some kind of engagement going with them. Skycutters are back shooting as well. They're whittling down the Marauder Horsemen, trying to pick off as many models as they can before they use their javelins on the Merwyrm. So let's go ahead and take a look here. I've also got the Dreadmaw firing his little ranged attack. Doesn't do a ton of damage, but, you know, it's a little bit of extra chip damage in a situation like this, especially to the Skycutter that's already been depleted pretty heavily. And actually finish off their unit models there. So, yeah, the Skycutters actually ended up being surprisingly graceful. I thought the animations might be a little bit more janky, but yeah, one unit still has all its unit models intact, loosing their multi-shot arrows into the Marauder Horsemen, doing some pretty good damage. Well, let's compare maybe after the fact this shooting attack to like the the Tirnoch chariots. Multiple bow shots, pretty good missile damage, 11 AP. And yeah, the Dreadmaw also continuing to return fire. This one here, at least, firing there. The other one also shooting the Skycutter. I think also might have been getting some chip shots into the Merwyrm, who is getting a regrowth to refresh his vigor as he tries to fight through the last of the Slaanesh Chosen. But tanky Chosen, despite not being anti-large, are just going to be super sticky and hard for the Merwyrm to get rid of, so also reducing that weapon strength, of course. Not that it matters too much against low entity model counts. Depending on how many splash attacks it has, it will just punch through anyway. But, yeah. Skycutter looking for some maybe targets of opportunity to charge in the open field, perhaps. That 60 charge bonus, decent weapon strength. They also have martial prowess, which gives them great melee defense for chariots in particular. Not even just flying chariots, but the Merwyrm getting spit on, getting javelined. MAW is the law. Yeah, the double MAW both firing and helping. Yeah, not too much, but some, certainly. And this is conquest, so I have been holding the objective the entire time. We get that little control marker there, which is nice to see. And the Merwyrm, unfortunately, now routing, is going to lose that Abyssal Cloak. No? Ah, interesting. It's still active. I thought that can use if leadership was broken. Interesting. Not sure what's going on there, but Marauder Horsemen will charge in now that they've used their javelins. We're going to chase them off with at least one unit there, as the other unit gets terrified away by the bowfire. And as Giamma goes to charge some more tattered units, try and keep his silver helms going into the late game, I'm just going to walk on over with a bunch of my Chosen, with my Dreadmaw here, to occupy the point once more. Meanwhile, over here, Dreadmaw assisting the Marauder Horsemen as they hammer and anvil into these regrouped spears. The Slaanesh Chosen, Merwyrm also coming back from rout, if ever so briefly. And here come the Sky Cutters charging down to the ground. Yeah, Giamma didn't use them too much as chariots. I guess I didn't have that many great targets for him to go after. Maybe could have rear charged the Bearmen while they were in that initial infantry engagement, just to even things out a little bit. But the Slaanesh Chosen are going to be very, very resilient against the charges of the Sky Cutters. And the Dreadmaw also chewing on one here. The splash attacks are definitely very interesting, the attack animations for the Dreadmaw. So this one ends up getting about 500 damage value, probably a little more after it, yeah, that counted for, what, 11 damage value there? Hitting those silver helms is what it is. But casters out there chasing some things as well, but I'm going to get a conquest victory as the points have been ticking up in my favor the whole time. Yeah, ultimately, the Dreadmaws, they're decently cheap. The micro tax, though, is pretty expensive, and having to constantly, like, burrow them and resurface them. That being said, because of their HP and because of that trait, they, as we saw here, can be incredibly difficult to deal with in terms of actually getting consistent damage on them. Granted, Giamma wasn't, like, aggressively going after them with the Merwyrm. Had he been really on top of, like, constantly countercharging them as soon as they surface with the Merwyrm, maybe they take a lot more damage from it, and not able to get so much work done with them. But ultimately, I mean, it's hard to tell. I really don't think this valuation is correct, which is why I think maybe the explosion damage perhaps is a little bit bugged. But I think, the Swordmasters were definitely very scary. Other than that, I was pretty much guaranteed to win the infantry fight, so yeah, Marauders, Bearmen here all get some pretty good value, except for one, I guess. But 650 on one, 1,000 damage value on the other. The one benefit of Bearmen is the extra stats they have. They can trade very well into Elven infantry. So that is one benefit, maybe one use case where you would want to take Bearmen over, over the regular Marauders in some matchups. The Chosen also just grinding through, generating a ton of value. Chosen Slaanesh definitely can be very strong in the right situation. Marauder Horsemen, of course, with their javelins doing quite a bit of damage. But yeah, the Dreadmaws, the Terror was nice, and the AoE damage was nice as well. And also, even thinking through other builds Giamma could have brought, the Marauder Horsemen, being a win condition against a lot of large monsters, but do need to be protected from archers somewhat. If he had brought a lot of archers, the Dreadmaws could have been decently useful in helping to kind of disrupt and annoy and kill them while the rest of my rush kind of developed here. So I do like them for that role for sure. And again, just the fact that they're relatively cheap terror means they'll be easy to fit into a lot of builds compared to other monsters. But the Sky Cutters also, one of them generates huge value. The other one, even despite getting attacked by Azazel the whole time, is still able to pretty much pay for itself. Yeah, I mean, I definitely should have been pursuing with Azazel the entire time. Should have been doing other things with him, but yeah, it is a learning experience. I knew probably wasn't the best idea. I was just like, yeah, let's see how well he can kill them, how well they kill him. And it turns out they do kill him. So, Yeah, let's just finish up quickly talking about Warriors of Chaos monsters. So, of course, Norska gets the Dreadmaw as well, which you could do a very similar build to this as Norska. Just, you know, swapping out champs for the Chosen, but obviously Champ's not quite as good as Chosen. But yeah, the Dreadmaw here, only 1,000 gold cost, so definitely is usable in a lot of different circumstances. Both Norska and Warriors don't really do a lot of Vanguard shenanigans, so the fact that it has Vanguard isn't wildly useful for that purpose, but it's nice to have, certainly. I haven't tested it too much against cavalry. The explosion, the unburrow, might be a little bit tricky to use consistently in mobility engagements. I mean, they're also not super fast, so like supporting Marauder Horsemen into a cavalry engagement with them might not necessarily be the easiest thing to do. But they are definitely a nice option to have. So I'm curious to see how the general public ends up reacting to them and how they end up using them. Just because it's such a unique unit, it really is very, very interesting. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.